Hello and welcome to Breakfast for Pancakes. I am your host, PK Sullivan. When it comes to sous vide videos on YouTube, beef gets almost all the love. I'm here to change that. Today, I'm going to show you how to make a thick cut pork chop that is so incredibly tender it will blow your mind. It's going to be great. Ingredients: thick cut pork chops, kosher salt, black pepper, 15 mils vegetable oil, 60 mils butter, 2 cloves of garlic. So a while back I decided to cook some pork chops. Except the only chops the market had was a 6-pound package of these absolute monsters. I bought the whole pack and froze most of them. When the first chop I cooked turned out so amazingly good, I knew I had to do a video on the process. Prep for this recipe is much like any other sous vide cook. Season your food all over and package it in a bag. I'm only using salt at this point because any herbs or spices added now will burn when we finish the chops in a pan. You can salt this up to a day in advance, but don't let it dry brine too long or the texture will change to be more like ham. I'm using a vacuum bag, but a zipper bag or reusable silicone bag will work just fine. Now drop the chops in the water bath and set it to 137. These can cook for 2 to 6 hours. How long you let them go is up to you. Mine will cook for 4 hours. I found that is a good point where the texture of the chops is incredibly tender and it gives me a whole afternoon to do other things. It may be a cliche, but the French really have perfected the art of making food better by just slathering it in butter. And that is what we're going to do with this pork chop. Basically, when the chops come out of the bath, we're going to treat them the way that a French restaurant would treat a nice ribeye steak. It's going to get seared in a hot pan and then basted with butter to finish. It's already fully cooked. We don't need to worry about getting an internal temperature. We're just there to build the outer crust. But because we don't want to overcook it, once it comes out of the bath, we're going to give it a rest in the fridge for about an hour so that it can cool down, and when it goes to sear in the pan, you develop a nice crust without cooking the insides too much. Alright, let's see how they look coming out of the bath. When your chops are done, pull the bag out of the water. I like to set mine on a cooking tray just so that the water doesn't spill everywhere. Then the chops go in the fridge for 30 to 60 minutes. Meanwhile, prepare your garlic cloves, by which I mean smash the heck out of them with a knife. Once your chops have rested, go ahead and remove them from the fridge. Remove the chops from the bag and pat them dry with paper towels. Water is what cooked these chops to medium rare and made them safe to eat, but for the rest of this recipe, water is the enemy. We want a deliciously golden brown crust on these pork chops. Moisture on the surface of food prevents browning because water boils at a lower temperature than is needed for the Maillard reactions. As long as there is water in contact with the surface of the pan, the heat from the pan will go towards boiling the water. This is a problem. State changes, such as from liquid moisture to gaseous steam, take incredible amounts of energy. This stalls out the temperature at the surface of the pan. Until the water is gone, the pan can't go any higher than 212 degrees. This slows down cooking and prevents any browning from occurring. So for any recipe where you really want to brown the food, make sure it's as dry as possible. Now for the fun part. Preheat a large skillet over medium-high heat. Add the oil and bring it up to heat, but below the smoke point. Add the chops, fat cap down. We want to render down that cap and start to crisp it up. Let it cook for about 2 minutes or until it is nicely browned. Then flip the chops and sear the other thin edge. This will cook for another 2 minutes. Now lay the chops flat and add a few grinds of black pepper. When the chops are browned enough that they release easily from the pan, about 2 to 3 minutes, flip them, then add the butter and garlic. Tilt the pan toward you so the butter pools along the nearest edge. Use your spoon to scoop up the melted butter and pour it over the chops. Continue scooping and pouring for 4 to 6 minutes. This is the key technique of the recipe, basting the chops with butter as it infuses with the garlic. The addition of butter controls the temperature of the pan and adds more fat. This keeps the chops in fond from burning, makes the chops more luscious, carries the garlic flavor onto the meat, and continues to brown the chops from the top down as we sear the other side. Browning from the top down is a really great trick. When food browns, the proteins contract and expel moisture. This moisture quickly boils off and wants to escape. It's a hot gas, so it wants to go up. When you're browning food on the pan side, the moisture gets trapped between the food and the pan until it escapes out the sides. When you cook from the top down, it just floats away. This lets food brown more quickly and evenly. It's the reason that restaurants use salamander broilers for steaks, and steaks are so great on the grill. A quick note on the gear for good results with this technique. You'll need a good skillet and the right kind of spoon. Your skillet doesn't need to be non-stick or cast iron. You can do this in stainless steel, but it should have flared or sloped sides. I'm using my carbon steel skillet just because of that. My 12-inch cast iron and stainless steel skillets both have straight walls. When you tip the pan back to pool the butter, the flared walls make it easy to get a spoon in the pan and full of hot butter. Now for the spoon. It should be large, probably the biggest spoon you've got in the set. If you've got a spoon for serving salad, use that. It's wide and shallow, picks up tons of butter that you can then pour over the food. Basting like this is sort of the slow road to deep frying. Keeping the hot fat flowing over your food is the key to success. Use a big spoon to scoop up lots of butter from the flared edges of your pan, and you'll do just fine. After 4 to 6 minutes, your garlic will have caramelized and the butter will be browned. The chops will have a beautiful bronze crust to them. Time to pull them out of the pan and set them to rest. Transfer the chops to a cooking tray or cutting board and loosely cover them with tin foil. Let them sit for 10 minutes so they can cool off and the juices can redistribute. To serve your pan-seared pork chops, slice them thinly across the grain. Arrange a few slices on a plate and serve with some nice vegetables. I made a simple pan-roasted asparagus to go with my chops. They're a simple steakhouse classic that won't steal the show. Some salt, pepper, and a quick squeeze of lemon is all asparagus needs. Now to taste the pork. Wow! I could not believe how rich this pork chop was. It practically fell apart under the fork. So tender, so juicy. This is the pork equivalent of a perfectly cooked slice of prime rib. The natural flavor of the pork shines through, complemented by that paper-thin bronze crust. Everything is enriched with garlic, butter, salt, and pepper. The ingredients are simple. That technique is straightforward, but it's what makes the pork chop shine. This is definitely not your mama's pork chop.